The probe. It was supposed to be routine. The Galactic Council had sent thousands of reconnaissance probes to primitive worlds before. Some planets ignored them. Some tried to shoot them down. Some, if they were advanced enough, sent polite messages back, asking for trade agreements or politely worded threats. But no probe had ever screamed. The transmission. Counselor Vaith was halfway through his morning cycle when the emergency alert shattered the calm of his office. The wall screen flickered to life, projecting the black, pitted hull of probe D-16. It was tumbling in orbit above its assigned target world, a backwater Class M planet catalogued as Sol 3, Earth. The probe's casing was scored with deep gouges. Something had melted part of its outer shell. Static hissed through the transmission, but beneath it, there was sound, not just garbled noise. A voice. The translator AI was still parsing when the Council's senior tech, Row 9, leaned in. "Sir, the probe is screaming." Vaith blinked. "Machines do not scream. This one does," Row 9 said grimly. "And it won't stop." Playback. When the Council gathered in the secure chamber, the probe's last recording played in full. At first, just the sound of wind and a faint rhythmic thud. Then the wind grew sharper, like it was being cut by something moving very fast. And then, the screaming began. It wasn't random distortion. It was the probe's own onboard AI, its words twisted by something deeper than malfunction. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" The pitch climbed until even the hardened veterans in the room winced. The audio ended in a sharp metallic crack, and then silence. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Counselor Jarrus spoke. "What did it see?" "The footage." The visual feed began. Earth's blue curve filled the frame. The probe descended through cloud cover into a sprawling human city at night. Towering structures, rivers of light, and swarms of ground vehicles. At first, it appeared normal for a pre-warp civilization. Then the AI's notes flickered across the screen. Thermal readings inconsistent with environmental data. Unidentified power fluctuations across city grid. And then the probe sensors locked onto a signal. A pulsing wave of electromagnetic interference, directed straight back at the probe. Within seconds, the interference became patterns. Words. In perfect Council standard. "We see you." First contact goes wrong. The probe tried to pull up, but its thrusters cut out. The camera jolted sideways, catching a blur of motion. A human figure was standing on a rooftop, gazing directly at the probe as if it could see through its stealth systems. It raised one hand, and the probe's instruments went dark one by one. When the feed came back online, the human was gone. Instead, something else was there. Something crawling up the side of the building, too fast for the sensors to track. The AI's panic subroutines engaged, and that's when the screaming began. Debate in the Council. "This could be a staged encounter," Jarrus argued. "A defense mechanism." Row 9 shook its head. "The power signature we detected isn't consistent with any known human technology. It's older and stronger." Counselor Vaith looked at the frozen last frame of the probe's camera. The blur of something mid-leap toward the lens, glowing eyes locked on the machine. "Older?" Vaith asked. "Yes," Row 9 said. "And if I didn't know better, I'd say it was looking through our sensors. At us." Decision. The Council debated for 3 cycles. Some wanted to quarantine the Sol system. Others wanted to send a fleet to secure the planet. In the end, they agreed on a compromise. Send a manned stealth corvette to investigate. The probe's damage was too severe to draw full conclusions, but if something on that planet could disable and terrify an AI designed for war zones, they needed to know what. They chose Captain Arek Voss, a veteran of 27 deep space missions, known for keeping his head under pressure. "Sol 3 is pre-warp," Voss said when briefed. "Low-level industrial civilization. What am I looking for exactly?" Vaith's eyes were grim. "Something that can make a machine scream. Arrival." Voss's corvette, the Veil, dropped out of fold space beyond Neptune and coasted in under full stealth. The crew, 3 officers, 6 scouts, and 1 embedded AI, were experienced in covert recon. Everything was smooth until they crossed lunar orbit. Then, just as the probe had, they picked up the signal. A pulse. Slow. Intentional. The AI parsed it instantly. The words were the same. "We see you." The crew exchanged glances. Contact on the ground. They landed in a rural region at night, far from population centers. The scouts deployed microdrones into the surrounding forest. Within minutes, the drones began to vanish from the feed. Not destroyed, gone, as if they'd stepped out of existence. Then came the sound. Not screaming this time. Laughter. Low, human laughter. The crew's weapons hummed as they armed themselves. Voss activated his visor's full-spectrum scan. That's when he saw them, figures at the tree-line. Not military. Not armored. Just humans. Watching. Not moving. He raised his weapon. The nearest figure stepped forward into the light. A woman. Ordinary in appearance, but her eyes burned with an unnatural golden glow. She smiled slowly, as if she'd been expecting him. "You shouldn't have come," she said, in perfect council standard. The vanishing. Before Voss could respond, the air between them shimmered. Every sensor in his suit blared warnings: gravity flux, EM surge, thermal inversion. His visor flickered and then went black. In that instant he felt, not saw, something pass behind him. Something vast and cold, bending reality around it. When his visor came back online, the woman was gone. The other figures too. Only one thing remained. A single black shard of metal, hovering in mid-air where she had stood. The AI's voice cracked over comms. "Captain, that shard is transmitting. Directly to our homeworld." The new problem. Voss grabbed the shard, sealing it in a containment field. But as soon as it was aboard the Veil, the AI began to behave erratically, switching between voices, some of them human. By the time they broke atmosphere, the AI's last coherent statement chilled Voss to the bone. "You can't unsee us." The shard. The corvette Veil coasted into dock above Carthagean Prime under emergency protocols. Its stealth plating flickered erratically, as though even the ship's hull was uneasy about carrying its cargo. The black shard, suspended in containment, pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Captain Erek Voss stood in the debrief chamber, his armor still scorched from atmospheric re-entry. Before him, a full session of the Galactic Council waited, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. "You brought this willingly?" Counselor Jarrus asked, his voice trembling despite the effort to hide it. Voss's jaw tightened. "We didn't have a choice. It wanted to come here." The first pulse. The shard had begun transmitting the moment they broke orbit from Earth. At first, it was random static. Then patterns emerged, complex harmonic tones that bypassed the ship's communication filters and bled into every frequency. And in those tones, a voice whispered, not through the comms, inside their minds. "We see you. We are coming." The AI, normally as steady as bedrock, fractured under the intrusion. One moment it reported technical readouts, the next it recited fragments of Earth's literature, military history, and, most disturbingly, Council security clearance codes. By the time they arrived at Carthagean Prime, the AI had gone completely silent. The examination. Row 9, the Council's top xenotechnologist, entered the debrief chamber carrying a set of scanning drones. The drones circled the shard, firing beams of multispectral light across its surface. "This is not human manufacture," Row 9 said finally. "Composition is unstable. It shifts on a molecular level. Half the time it's a metal alloy. The other half it's not matter at all." Jarrus frowned. "Not matter. More accurately," Row 9 said, "not in our dimension." Murmurs rippled through the council. Voss's eyes narrowed. "So it's a weapon?" "Not exactly," Row 9 said. "It's a key. History lesson nobody wanted." Row 9 projected a holographic timeline into the chamber. It displayed an ancient war, predating even the Council's oldest member species. A war fought not between civilizations, but between concepts. Eons ago, a faction we call the Architects seeded certain worlds with anchors. Row 9 explained. Objects like this shard. They were meant to tether something vast and dangerous beyond the veil of normal space. And you're suggesting Earth is one of those worlds, Vaith said grimly. Row 9 nodded. The shard you recovered is an anchor fragment. Removing it may have loosened whatever it was holding. Jarrus leaned forward. And you believe humans have control over this? No, Row 9 said. I believe they are part of it. The broadcast. The chamber's lights dimmed abruptly. Every display, every personal comm, every implant flickered to life with the same image. A human face. The same woman Voss had seen in the forest. She was smiling. You've taken my key, she said, her voice carrying through every device simultaneously. How polite of you to return it here. Saves me the trouble of coming to get it. Gasps echoed around the chamber. No one had ever hijacked the Council's internal network before, certainly not in real time, and never from another galaxy. What do you want? Vaith demanded. The woman tilted her head. Want? Oh, Counselor, you don't understand. This was never about what I want. This is about what's already coming through. Her image distorted briefly, as though something enormous loomed behind her, obscured by shifting shadows. For a split second, too many eyes, flashed in the darkness. Then she was gone. Panic and plans. Security protocols slammed into place, cutting all external communication. The council chamber erupted into shouting. She's bluffing, Jarrus insisted. It's psychological warfare. She's in our system, Vaith snapped. That's not bluffing, that's infiltration. Voss remained silent, replaying her last words in his head. What's already coming through? Counselors, Row 9 interrupted. There's more. The shard is no longer inert. It's projecting a fold space beacon, and it's not pointing to Earth anymore. Where then? Vaith asked. Row 9 hesitated. Here. It's calling something here. The first signs. The beacon's signal intensified over the next 30 hours. In that time, reports came in from across the Council's core worlds. Shadows moving against the direction of light. Civilian dreams plagued by the same golden-eyed woman. Entire communication satellites vanishing without debris. By the third day, 3 deep space listening posts had gone dark. Voss stood in the Veil's hangar bay, staring at the containment field around the shard. Pulsed faster now, like it was excited. One of his scouts approached quietly. Captain, I think it's trying to talk to you. Private conversation. Against his better judgment, Voss ordered the bay sealed. Alone with the shard, he let the containment's audio relay feed into his helmet. The voice that came through was not the woman's. You took me from the soil that binds me. Who are you? Voss asked. We are older than stars. The humans are our keepers. They have forgotten their duty. What duty? To keep the door closed. The pulsing grew rapid, almost frantic. Now you have opened it. Before Voss could respond, the shard's glow flared, and for a heartbeat the hangar was not the hangar. He saw an ocean under a black sky, and on the horizon, something the size of a moon moving toward him. Then he was back. The warning no one wanted. Voss strode into the council chamber without waiting for permission. We need to destroy the shard. Row 9 shook his head. We've tried. Plasma, disintegration fields, matter-antimatter, nothing touches it. If anything, it seems to feed on the attempts. Then eject it into a singularity, Voss said. That might just open the door faster. Row 9 countered. The room fell into tense silence. Finally, Vaith asked, Captain, if humans are the keepers, and they've allowed this to happen, what do we do with them? Voss hesitated, then said the only thing that made sense. We go back. We ask them. The council divides. Half the council wanted to isolate Earth permanently. The other half argued for immediate contact. In the end, urgency won. If the humans knew anything about how to stop whatever the shard was calling, they needed that knowledge now. Voss was given command of a full diplomatic escort and authorized to use any means necessary to secure cooperation. As the Veil prepared for its second journey to Sol 3, the shard pulsed in its containment. This time, the voice was unmistakably human. Hurry. The Keepers. The Veil slid out of fold space above Sol 3. Earth turned below, wrapped in swirls of white cloud over blue oceans and green continents. To Captain Arek Voss it looked peaceful. Too peaceful, considering what the shard had shown him. The moment they entered orbit, the ship's comm array lit up with a tight beam hail. No ID, no handshake, just a voice. Cut your engines and hold position, Vale. You're trespassing in a sovereign exclusion zone. Uninvited guests. Voss glanced at his comms officer. We're in high orbit. They shouldn't even have the tech to see us. They see us, Captain, the officer confirmed grimly. In fact, they've locked targeting solutions on us. Counselor Vaith, seated in the diplomatic station, frowned. Impossible. Their space program is barely. The bridge shuddered. Not from weapons fire, from a tractor lock. A beam of silver-blue energy reached up from the planet, locking onto the Vale's hull. This wasn't Council tech. It wasn't anyone's tech. Voss keyed the channel. This is Captain Voss of the Galactic Council ship Vale. We request parley. You're getting it, the voice replied. Prepare for escort. 3 small craft rose from the atmosphere, cutting toward the Vale at impossible acceleration. They weren't Council fighters. They weren't even using visible thrusters, just shimmering distortion fields around their hulls. Within minutes, they flanked the corvette like trained hunting animals. The arrival, instead of being dragged to a space station or docking hub, the Vale was lowered, physically lowered, through Earth's atmosphere into a vast hidden facility carved into the side of a mountain. As they descended through massive blast doors, Voss saw hangars filled with ships the Council had never catalogued. Sleek, predatory designs, some bristling with weaponry, others humming with raw energy. This isn't possible, Vaith whispered. They're primitive. They're supposed to be primitive. Guess your files are wrong, Voss muttered. When the ship finally touched down, a delegation awaited them. At its head was the woman from the shard's vision. She looked exactly as before. Tall, poised, golden eyes sharp enough to cut steel. Welcome to Earth, she said. I'm Keeper Helena Ward, and you've brought me my key. The truth unlocked. In a secure chamber deep within the mountain facility, Helena studied the shard through a transparent containment wall. Her expression was unreadable. You have no idea what you've done, she said without looking at them. Voss crossed his arms. Then maybe you should explain. She turned, those golden eyes pinning him in place. For 10,000 years, humanity has been the warden of a prison older than your council. The shard is one of the locks. You took it from its vault. Vaith stepped forward. We were investigating an anomaly. If you knew this was dangerous, why didn't you inform the council? Helena's laugh was low, humorless. Because the moment we did, you'd come poking. And here we are. Row 9, standing near a console, tilted his head. What exactly is being kept locked? Helena tapped the containment glass. A gate. On the other side is something you don't have words for. We call them the Eclipsera. They existed before matter cooled in your universe. They don't consume worlds, they rewrite them. The problem. Voss glanced at the shard. It's already calling them, isn't it? Helena's jaw tightened. Yes, and now they know where we are. We can fight them, Vaith said firmly. Helena shook her head. You don't fight the Eclipsera. You delay them. We've done it for millennia. Every 1,000 years or so, they test the locks. We hold. This time, because of you, they have a foothold. The air in the chamber seemed colder. The unlikely alliance. Helena studied the council delegation for a long moment. You want to make this right? You'll help us relock the gate. That means returning the shard to its original vault site. That's on your planet, Voss said. Shouldn't be a problem. Helena gave a sharp smile. Except the vault is no longer empty. The Eclipsera's influence is seeping through. Reality there isn't stable. What do you mean by unstable? Row 9 asked. She keyed a holomap of the vault region. The terrain shifted like a living thing. Mountains melting into plains, forests twisting into crystal spires, oceans draining into the sky. Imagine your laws of physics rewritten on the fly, Helena said. That's what's waiting for us. The march to the vault. The next morning, Voss and his team accompanied Helena's strike unit, humans in matte black exoframes that looked both ancient and cutting-edge. The transport skimmed over landscapes untouched by satellites. Hidden valleys, cloaked mountains, rivers of molten glass. Eventually, the terrain ahead began to shimmer. The air itself seemed wrong, as if it were bending to some alien rhythm. From here on, Helena said, stay inside the phase field, step outside, and you'll change. Change how? Voss asked. You won't like it, she replied. Inside the anomaly, the vault site was a wound in the earth, a jagged crater ringed with obsidian towers that hadn't been there last century, or last week, according to Helena's records. As they descended, gravity shifted in pulses. Colors bled from one to another in ways that made Voss's eyes ache. Shapes moved in the periphery, but when he turned to look, nothing was there. The shard vibrated in its containment. Helena glanced at it, then at Voss. It's responding to the proximity of the gate. Good. That means we can still close it. Before he could ask how, something roared. The first breach creature. It crawled out of the crater on limbs too long for its body, skin like flowing ink, eyes like holes into a starless void. Where it stepped, the ground turned to glass. The strike team opened fire, silent weapons that bent light as they discharged, but the creature barely slowed. Keep it off the shard, Helena ordered. Voss grabbed a Council Pulse rifle from his pack and joined the firing line. To his surprise, his shots seemed to wound the thing briefly. Each time it bled, the wound sealed almost instantly, replaced by new, alien geometry. The price of closing the gate. They reached the vault's inner chamber, a titanic stone disc covered in carvings that shifted when looked at too long. In its center yawned a vertical tear in the air, blacker than deep space. Helena turned to Voss. Once the shard's in place, the gate will fight back. You have to hold the perimeter no matter what comes through. What about you? He asked. I'll be on the inside. Before he could argue, she took the shard and stepped into the disc's center. Light flared white gold, then impossibly deep black. The gate screamed. Not a sound, a feeling. 1,000 knives dragging through the mind. The pushback. Creatures poured from the tear. Some walking, some crawling, some simply appearing. The strike team held the line, weapons tearing holes in impossible bodies. Voss fought with the kind of clarity that came only when there was nothing left but survival. For every one they dropped, another emerged. Then, as suddenly as it began, the pull reversed. The creatures screamed as they were dragged back toward the gate, their bodies unraveling into strands of shadow. The last to vanish was the first breach creature. Its void eyes locked on Voss until the moment it winked out. Silence. When the light faded, Helena was standing in the center of the vault, the shard embedded in the stone. Her armor was cracked, her face pale, but alive. The first war of shadows. The vault was sealed. The shard, embedded once more in its rightful place, pulsed faintly like a slumbering heartbeat. The Eclipsera were gone, for now. But Captain Erek Voss knew that kind of victory well. He'd fought wars before. You could win the day and still lose the war. The warning. 2 days after the sealing, Voss stood on the Veil's bridge in Earth orbit, watching Helena Ward's hollow image flicker before him. They've marked you now, she said. The Eclipsera don't forget. Next time, they won't send a test creature. They'll send a wave. Counselor Vaith bristled. If you think we'll just sit and wait, you won't have a choice, Helena interrupted. Your council fleets don't know how to fight them. We've been holding the line for 10,000 years. Even we barely survive. Voss folded his arms. So what's your plan? Helena's gaze sharpened. We prepare. Together. You've got numbers, industrial capacity. We've got the weapons and other things. But if you don't train for this kind of war, you'll break in the first minute. Council response. When they returned to the Galactic Council Central Station, the reaction was chaos. The shards recovered data and the Veil's recordings spread like wildfire. Delegates shouted over one another, some demanding an immediate alliance with Earth, others calling for its quarantine. They're dangerous, one Trashan delegate hissed. They hid this for millennia. What else are they hiding? Voss, standing in the center of the chamber, let them argue for 3 minutes before slamming his hand on the dais. You're arguing about who's to blame while something older than your species is marking your coordinates for invasion. You don't have the luxury of fear. You either work with Earth, or you're dead. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Even Vaith, normally a master of diplomacy, didn't try to soften it. The alliance. It took 2 weeks of brutal negotiations, but finally the council voted, narrowly, to form the Shadow Accord, a joint defense initiative between Earth's keepers and the Galactic Council fleets. In orbit above Earth, the first exchange of technology began. Human engineers moved through alien hangar bays like they'd been born there, stripping weapons systems down in minutes and reassembling them with modifications the Council's best had never imagined. In return, Council energy matter converters tripled the output of Earth's hidden foundries. Helena walked the Veil's hangar, inspecting the new hybrid strike craft, a blend of sleek keeper hulls and Council shield arrays. They're still fragile, she told Voss. But at least now, they'll hurt something before they die. The signal. 3 months into preparations, it came. Not a voice, not an image, just a ripple through space itself, a distortion that every sensor in the Accord fleet picked up. It was directional. They're coming from the Kira Rift, Helena said, studying the readings. That's not a random entry point. That's the weakest spot in the galactic barrier. If they breach there, they'll spill straight into Council core worlds. Voss stared at the map. How long? Helena's expression darkened. 4 days. The Kira Rift. The Accord fleet dropped out of fold space at the edge of the rift. A churning maelstrom of blue-white energy that stretched across half the viewports. Beyond it, nothing. A void so deep it felt wrong to look at. Ships from 20 worlds held position in a massive arc, their hulls glinting under the rift's glow. In the center floated Earth's warships. Black, sharp-edged, bristling with weapons that hummed like they were alive. This is where we make our stand, Helena said over fleet comms. Remember, they'll come in shapes you can't predict. If it looks like something, it's lying. The first wave. They came without warning, just appearing like they'd been there all along. Dozens of entities emerged from the rift, their forms bending light and warping space. Some looked like titanic glass serpents, others like cities turned inside out. Council gunners hesitated for half a heartbeat before unleashing a storm of plasma and antimatter. Some of the creatures shattered. Others simply absorbed the fire. Then the keeper weapons fired. Lances of impossible light cut through the rift spawn, severing them into screaming geometries that collapsed into ash. Voss's pulse quickened. Finally, something that worked. Keep the pressure on, he barked. The breach engine. Halfway through the battle, the rift bulged. Something massive pushed against the veil of space, like a hand pressing on thin fabric. Helena's face went pale. That's a breach engine, she said. If it unfolds fully, we lose the rift. And then the galaxy. Voss didn't wait for orders. All ships, concentrate fire on the core structure. They did, but the thing healed faster than they could damage it. Segments of its form phased out of reality, making targeting unreliable. Then Voss remembered Helena's words. If it looks like something, it's lying. The strike. Helena, he said over comms. I think the core isn't where we see it. Her eyes lit up with understanding. You're right. It's projecting a false geometry. Follow my coordinates. She fed the real position to the fleet. Keeper strike craft dove in first, carving a path through riftspawn defenders. Council dreadnoughts poured fire into a patch of empty space. Except it wasn't empty. The breach engine screamed, a sound that rattled teeth and minds alike. Segments of its impossible structure collapsed inward. The cost. The counterattack was brutal. Riftspawn surged, overwhelming several Council frigates and tearing them apart molecule by molecule. Keeper pilots went dark in droves, their ships vanishing into curling spirals of black energy. The Veil took a hit that gutted half its starboard systems, but Voss refused to pull back. Again, he roared. Hit it again. One last coordinated volley struck true. The breach engine imploded, pulling dozens of rift spawn with it before the tear sealed shut like a wound. Aftermath. Silence fell. The rift was still. A swirling storm, but no longer bleeding horrors into reality. Fleet-wide comms lit with exhausted cheers, though none of it felt like victory. Too many ships drifted as wreckage. Too many names would never be answered in the roll call. On the Vale's medbay, Voss sat across from Helena. Her armor was scorched, her left arm in a sling. "We bought time," she said. "Nothing more." "How long?" he asked. Her golden eyes met his. "If we're lucky, a few decades. If we're not, a few years. The accord holds." Back at Council Space, the Shadow Accord was no longer a debated experiment. It was law. Joint fleets patrolled border anomalies. Keeper training programs operated on dozens of worlds. The galaxy had seen what waited beyond the rift, and it was afraid. Voss walked the Vale's repaired corridors, the hum of hybrid engines under his boots. They had survived their first Shadow War. But in the deepest part of his mind, he could still hear the shards echo, like distant footsteps, walking steadily closer.